one of the things I really love about Bankfoot House coming into our lives is it makes me feel a little bit vindicated in keeping the memorabilia of my families, which are vast and filled with lots of interesting people and fabulous items. Hi Ange, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Robin. Welcome to Bankfoot House.
I know, we're coming from inside Bankfoot House this week. I'm just loving the background that you've got happening there. That beautiful pianola and VJ walls and, it just does all of those things to me. I love it.
Yes, this is one of my favourite rooms in the house.
Yeah, so can you just tell me a little bit about what your role at Bankfoot House is and just, something that you really love about it?
Well, I'm Cultural Heritage Program Officer for Sunshine Coast Council, and I'm really lucky that I get to work at Bankfoot House a couple of days a week. My main role here is helping with the collection and also running events here. But what I really love is taking tours through the house.
Yeah, that's. I have that similar to feeling of when you're with people and you're showing them something that you really love. It's a fantastic thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, and it always brings so many memories back for people when they do come through the house.
Yeah.
So you really get to meet people from all over the world. I met some people from Texas recently, and when people see different objects in the house, like a biscuit tin or a milk jug, it just brings back so many fond memories. It's a really great experience.
Yeah, wonderful. What is your first random item you'd like to share?
My first random item is first I'll talk about the area where we are located. We're located in the Glasshouse Mountains. So the Kabi Kabi and Jinnabara First Nations people are the custodians for the Sunshine Coast. But the Glasshouse Mountains in particular are of very cultural significance for the local First Nations people. All of the mountains are very significant. They all have their own stories associated with them. But also Old Gympie Road was First Nations pathway, and that is where the house is actually located on Old Gympie Road.
Oh, okay. So and Old Gympie Road sort of takes lots of different turns between Brisbane and Gympie, doesn't it? So are you saying that it was an original track that the Indigenous people used at that time and, leading up to that point?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So a lot of our early roads are just following First Nations pathways. The Old Gympie Road was really opened up when the Gympie Gold Rush started in 1867, and Bankfoot House was then established in 1868, ready for the Cobb and Co coaches that came along the route. This site was picked out in particular by Mary and William Brieger because it was located right between the two biggest mountains in the Glasshouse Mountains, Mount Biwa and Mount Tibrogargan, so that it was easy to locate. So if you were coming from Brisbane, you might be travelling on horseback, you could be walking, you might be travelling by coach, or you could even be riding a bicycle from Brisbane, which some people did. But if you wanted to locate Bankfoot House, all you had to do was find the centre of those two big mountains and you would find the property.
Okay, because now it's all cleared pretty much right around that area, but at that time, obviously it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, that's right. Old Gympie Road was just a dirt track. There's also lots of sacred sites in the Glasshouse Mountains. There are border rings that people can visit, and there's also the Rocky Creek grinding grooves, which are located not far from Bankfoot House on Old Gympie Road. So that's another really great site to visit.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think that, you could spend some time at Bankfoot House and then go around to those sites as well, couldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. And there's a beautiful lookout too over the Glasshouse Mountains nearby.
Fabulous.
So, yeah, it's a lovely area.
Yeah. All right, so you do have something to show us
Yes,
and share with us, though, don't you?
Yes, so getting back to the first object, we've got a letter which we recently found. So we have about 6,300 collection items in the Bankfoot House collection. We were very fortunate that when the family sold the house to council in 2004, that everything came with the house. The family donated everything. So we've got everything that you can imagine, everything that you have in your own house. So furniture, clothing, photographs, letters and bills, all those kinds of things. And as we catalogue those objects, we then learn more about what we do have in our collection. And we're really fortunate that we found this letter. It's actually from a guest who stayed at Bankfoot House. So we get a really great idea of what it was like to stay here. And it was written by a guest from New Zealand. It was written in 1905 and this guest stayed here in 1904. And he actually refers to all three generations of the family.
Wow.
So that's another reason why it's a very special letter.
Yes.
Would you like me to read
I'd
it out
love
to
you.
you?
Yes, please do, because I love the language of the time as well.
Okay. Heathcote Valley, June 4th, 1905. Dear Mrs. Burgess, I take the liberty of writing a few lines to you to thank you for your great kindness to me while in Queensland. I suppose you have almost forgotten me by this time, but I have not forgot yours and Mr. Burgess's kindness to me, who was a total stranger to you. Why I delayed so long in writing, I don't know, but I was looking through my diary tonight and I came across an account of my doings in Queensland, and it occurred to me that I had never written to you, and it is nearly a year since the night I arrived at your place, which was June 16th. Well, Mrs. Burgess, Queensland seems a long way from here now, but I can tell you I often live those times over again in my mind. I look back on the time I spent at the Glasshouse Mountains as one of the best in my life, how I used to get up in the morning and go out for the day shooting and riding through the kindness of Mr. Grieger and Mr. Burgess in lending me a horse and gun. How I enjoyed the beautiful scenery and would come home tired, for your place was a home to me while I stopped with you, and after tea the big fire to sit by and Mr. Grieger to talk to. I liked Mr. Grieger very much indeed and hope he is well. I enjoyed very much the talks I had with him about Queensland and the natives and customs, etc. How is dear little Mary getting on? She was a picture of health. I'm sending her a small book. Please give it to her with my love. I will never forget the day I went up Mount Biwa. By Jove, it was a pretty stiff climb, but the view of surrounding country from the top amply repaid the hard work in getting up. How is Mrs. J. Burgess and family getting on? They were very kind to me indeed in letting me stop there. Please kindly remember me to them and tell Mrs. Burgess I will never forget her kindness and hospitality, and also Mr. Burgess in aiding me in my search after snakes. If it had not been for him, I would not have got that fine specimen of a carpet snake, which I am glad to say I brought safely home. In fact, I never had one specimen damaged, and that was pretty good, I think, considering the way they knock baggage about generally. I had good weather right up to the time I got home. I often wish we could exchange weather with you. It is so cold here now in the winter. At present, the hills all around are white with snow, and we get weeks of hard frosts. I do not think you can beat a fairly warm climate. I have just come back from a week's duck shooting with my brother and a chum of mine. Went up to the big lake. It is about 30 miles from here, and we had some good sport. We took up a tent and camped, but it was so cold we had to keep a fire going all night. Even then, the tent would freeze as stiff as a board by the morning. I am sending Mr. Grieger and Mr. Burgess back numbers of weekly papers. Well, Mrs. Burgess, I must close now. Again, thanking you for your great kindness and hospitality to me, and hoping you all enjoy the very best of health as I do at present, and believe me. Yours truly, Fred Landamoldy, Heathcote Valley, Christchurch, New Zealand.
That's a lovely letter, isn't it? And I think we've lost a little bit of letter writing art. Do you think so?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think writing an email is very different to writing a letter. A letter is so personal because you actually get to see the person's handwriting. It's something that they have touched as well. So, yeah, there is something. I think people put a lot more effort and detail when they write letters.
Yeah. And different too when you get to stay with people who live in an area rather than and there would have been boarding houses and so forth in the cities at that time, but now I guess a difference is that we probably tend to stay in hotels or motels or apartments or whatever more often than staying with families in a place. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's what he sort of referred to in his letter as well. He felt like part of the family, which is really lovely. We get that sense of, what it was really like to stay at Bankfoot House, which we haven't kind of had that personal story before, which is really fantastic.
Yeah. Now, Ange, I'm interested to know what your thoughts are around conserving personal items from, for people like me who have got a bit of memorabilia. There's a photo here, and we can see it on this other camera of my family, and it's got my dad as a young man and aunts and uncles and so forth, and it was taken. They all worked for Waygood Otis, which was the Otis lift company at the time, and this one was at Hollywood Park in Sydney. And I've just, I've got all of these photos, and I've got tea sets, and I've got plates. You can see them up the back here, and all sorts of things. At the moment, they're just shoved in cupboards, and I know that is not how I should store them. What should I do?
Well, with the photo album, what we recommend is just to keep the photos in a dark room. So don't expose them to sunlight if you can. If you do have them on display, just be careful with glass frames because they can attract mold. So be careful to keep those clean. But if you have a really special original photograph, it's best to store those as you have there in the album, and perhaps even put tissue paper between the pages so that the photographs don't stick. And those are the main things, keeping them away from heat and also from sunlight.
Okay, well, that's excellent. And mostly I've been scanning them so we can enjoy seeing them and sharing them with our family. And then, I think I'm going to do exactly that and buy some tissue paper, wrap them back up and pop them back in the blanket box where I had them.
Yeah, that's a great idea to scan them as well, because then you can keep the original safe, but everybody can still enjoy the photographs.
That's right. And I guess as families get bigger, the possessions get distributed more widely. It's interesting that the families of Bankfoot House were happy just to give everything to the council to keep with the house. I can see myself going, oh, maybe I can just hand over my house to the council and my boys won't have to worry about all of the stuff I've collected over the years. That's not going to happen, though, is it?
Yeah. They were very generous and so lucky, and they knew that their collection was special because they were the first house in the region. This was the lot number 1 in the Glasshouse Mountains.
Wow.
So they knew they had a fantastic story, and they knew the importance of telling this story.
Yeah. What's the next item that you'd like to share?
The next item is this beautiful pianola behind me. So this is actually known as Clementina's pianola. This was purchased in 1928, just before the original house was demolished. So in 1930, the original house was demolished, and they extended the house that exists today, that we're in now. This house was built in 1978, 10 years after the original. but then it was extended in 1930. So that's when they bought this pianola. Clementina was really keen to buy the pianola because she wanted everybody to be able to play music. They were a very musical family. They have a lot of musical instruments in this room, and there's actually some great photographs of the family all together in this room holding musical instruments. And they would actually go out into the community. They would, Clementina in particular and her two daughters, they were very proficient at playing the piano. So they would go out to local events, and they would also play at dances. So it was a real form of entertainment for them. I guess there was no TV or internet back then. So, yeah, music was their entertainment.
That's right. That's fantastic, isn't it? And it gives such an opportunity for communities to bond around music and performance and gatherings, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, exactly. It was I think it would have been a very social time.
Yeah.
And, of course, all of the guests at the house as well probably would have joined in. So it probably would have been a pretty fun place to hang out.
Yeah. Are you going to is it playable? Can you play it?
It is, yeah. So we're very fortunate that in 2010, Heather Gowan, a local resident, she donated some money to restore the pianola. And she used to come out here as a child and then later on as an adult, and she would listen to the pianola being played. So she was very keen that anyone coming to Bankfoot House would have the same experience. So when you come to Bankfoot House, you definitely have a chance to listen to the pianola being played. Also, the rolls that we have in the pianola, they've been donated to us as well. They're the rolls that we use every day. But then we do have some special pianola rolls which were owned by the family, and we store those in the Mary Grigger Centre archive store.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, we also have some lovely stories. They recall Clementina playing the pianola. We're very lucky that Ethel Burgess just lives nearby. So she tells a lovely story of all of the grandchildren. She was actually one of the grandchildren of Clementina's grandchildren. So she tells this wonderful story of all the grandkids running up to Clementina, and she's working away, perhaps making scones. And they're all begging her to go and play the pianola. So she'll dust off her hands, dust the flour off, sit down at the pianola, play a couple of tunes, and then she says to the kids, oh, no, I've got to get back to work now, because she was always working. And then she'd finish off the scones.
That is a beautiful story, isn't it? I've got that image really clear in my mind of what that would have been like. How beautiful.
Yes.
So are you going to play it for us, or are we going to see...
This is the Mary Poppins Medley, which is one of the favourite songs here that visitors can listen to when they come.
Fantastic.
So I just have to push these pedals at the bottom of the pianola, and that pushes air up into the bellows, which make the roll move. And then the perforations in the roll actually make the keys move. So it's a self-playing piano.
Fantastic. Well, that's fantastic, Ange. I loved it. I can just imagine a whole bunch of us standing around that and singing well into the night.
Yeah, it'd be so much fun.
It would be so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for playing that and sharing the letter, and so fascinating about that pathway, that old Gympie Road pathway with the Jinnabara and the Kabi Kabi people using that, establishing that, and then the settlers using that as well. It's just so much incredible history there that I'm very keen to learn more about.
Yes, it's wonderful. We're so lucky that we have this. And, people can visit for free anytime. I'm open on the weekends, so, yeah, it's fantastic. It's a really great spot. You can spend the whole day out here.
Yeah, fabulous. All right, thank you, Ange. Well, I'll catch up with you another day.
Thank you, Robin.
Thanks for watching. And did you get that tune? Are you singing it in your head now? It's a Mary Poppins number, and you can listen to the pianola when you go and visit Bankfoot House. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Ange.
Oh, thank you.
That was terrific.
Good.
So much fun. And so with the Indigenous history, is there much that we can read about when we're out there?
Yes, we do have some information out here. We've got information panels in the Mary Grigger Centre. So there are actually some of the traditional First Nations stories about some of the mountains.
Okay.
And also just about the general First Nations history for the region.
Fabulous. That's great. Well, I'm keen.
We've got some accounts of people some guests who's staying at Bankfoot House who would go across the road to listen to corroborees at night.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so they would pay to go and be entertained.
Wow. Oh, that's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's an amazing place.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ange. Well done.